Tumanako. To hope for, wish for. What is it that I hope for, wish for? I came into teaching believing that education will change the lives of children living in poverty and that education will give hope for a brighter future. But is this true? Can education break the cycle of poverty and provide hope for those who need it? If so, then why are our children still failing under the education system? And why are those who fail more likely those who belong to marginalized and minority groups? Let's take a look at New Zealand national standard statistics. The proportion of students achieving at or above the New Zealand national standards by ethnicity in 2016 for reading, maths and writing show that 84.2% of European Pākehā students have met or above national standards in reading, 80.8% of European Pākehā students have met or above in maths, and 77.1% of European Pākehā students have met or above in writing. For our Māori students, 68.8% of students have met or above national standards in reading, 65.3% of Māori students have achieved national standards in maths, and 61.6% of Māori students have met or above national standards for writing. Our Pacific Island students who are closely behind our Māori learners show 66% who have met or above national standards in reading, 62.7% in maths, and 60.5% in writing. So, who does education really cater for? In 1921, a boy born in Recife, one of the most extreme situations of poverty and underdevelopment in the Third World, had experienced the side effects of poverty in his own schooling life, and starvation undermined his ability to concentrate and learn in class. What did he hope for? Wish for. At the age of 11, this boy made a vow to dedicate his life towards a fight against poverty and the struggle of hunger, so that other children wouldn't have to experience the same struggle. This young boy grew to be one of the most influential educational theorists and the leading advocate to critical pedagogy. His name, Paulo Freire. While working as an instructor for literacy amongst the peasants in Brazil, Freire recognized what he termed the culture of silence. Silence that was cultivated amongst the oppressed as they lived under the control of a heavy, affluent, dominant society. This culture of silence showed that the oppressed were discouraged and ill-equipped to knowing and responding to the concrete realities of their world. They became so fixated on their oppression that they were kept submerged, making it almost impossible to foster a critical awareness towards the injustice circulating their oppressed lives. Freire hoped to improve the lives of the poor and the oppressed by liberating them through an education of freedom. An education that allowed the oppressed to engage in their own conscientization, thus freeing themselves from the situations and powers which oppress them. Hegemony sees beneath Freire's expression of culture of silence, in which hegemony reflects the powerful winning the consent of those who are oppressed, with the oppressed unknowingly participating in their own oppression. While bearing as a witness to this inequality and social injustice, Freire realized that the entire educational system was one of the major instruments for the maintenance of this culture of silence. So, what were his theories in education? Freire used the banking model of education as an illustration of the power of the teacher, the oppressor, over the students, the oppressed. This banking concept showed teachers as the depositors, constantly depositing information which the teacher constitutes as true knowledge into the students who are the depositories. These students then passively receive, memorize, and repeat this true knowledge, which reflects the view, knowledge, and beliefs of the dominant culture. The traditional model of education completely lacks student creativity, transformation, and critical engagement with knowledge. Instead, the student is an adapted person because she or he is better fit for the world. This student has now become an educated individual. Bourdieu's social reproduction theory says that class inequality in society is reproduced and maintained by education. He believed that people start school in a social hierarchy and they leave school or university in the same hierarchy. This theory of social reproduction helps to explain why 3 students who are exposed to the same learning environment can come out with different results, and this has big consequences for their future. Freire rejected the banking model of education by saying, this concept is well suited to the purposes of the oppressors, whose tranquility rests on how well people fit the world the oppressors have created, and how little they question it. He rightly states that knowledge emerges only through invention and reinvention, through the restless, impatient, continuing, hopeful inquiry human beings pursue it in the world, with the world, and with each other. So, what did he impose? Problem-posing education. Freire recognized that education must begin with the solution of the teacher-student contradiction, by reconciling the poles of contradiction so that both are simultaneously teachers and students. Freire says, to resolve the teacher-student contradiction, to exchange the role of depositor, prescriber, domesticator, for the role of student among students would be to undermine the power of oppression and serve the cause of liberation. Through dialogue, the teacher of the students and the students of the teachers cease to exist, and a new term emerges, teacher-students with student-teachers. The teacher is no longer the one who teaches, but one who is himself taught in dialogue with the students, who in turn, while being taught, also teach. They become jointly responsible for a process in which all grow. Education then becomes the practice of freedom, rather than education as a practice of domination. Freire also imposes that the solution is not to integrate students into the structure of oppression, but to transform that structure so that they become beings for themselves. This powerful concept reignites the curriculum and recognizes the experience and dignity of students and their culture. The New Zealand Graduating Teacher Standards states that graduating teachers understand how contextual factors influence teaching and learning. We must have an understanding of the complex influences that personal, social, and cultural factors may have on teachers and our learners. Problem-posing education supports this. It causes students to reflect critically and encourages them to create their own understanding of the world and their place in the world. It entices learners to discover, inquire, question, challenge, create, and recreate understandings of their surroundings. Problem-posing is revolutionary futurity, hence it is prophetic, and as such, hopeful. So, what is it that you hope for, wish for,